Hello and welcome to the Sewing Studio. My name's Jeanette and today we're going to be doing one of my favourite star blocks and it's called the Friendship Star. I've used it in the quilt behind me. I actually made this quilt for my sister. I'll talk about that quilt a little bit later on. Now the fabrics I've decided to choose for this star block is these lovely bright cheerful pack from Moda called Soiree from Mara Penny, and it's really lovely sort of bright pinks and purples and really happy fun line. So I thought this would be a really good one to use. And my plan is, and it is a plan at this stage, is I'm going to make lots of different star blocks and hopefully turn it into a children's quilt. But it's going to be a bit of a mystery quilt, even to me at this stage, because I haven't decided exactly what it's going to look like. So that will be work in progress and we'll just see how we get along with this. So the block we're making, I'm actually going to do it a 6.5 inch block, because I think that's going to give me more flexibility for the quilt that I've yet to design. But I really like these fun fabrics. I've just picked out 2 from those 10-inch squares, the layer cakes. And I was really lucky because we sell this fabric here in the sewing studio and they've got it in all the different pre-cuts and there's lots of yardage as well. So when it comes to me making the quilt, I'm going to have lots of choices and lots of options about how to finish it. So it's a really fun and happy, I mean, I just love the colours in it. It's just, I say, for a children's quilt, it's going to be absolutely brilliant. So for these blocks, what I'm doing is I'm actually sort of choosing 2 different fabrics, but of the same tone. So you can see here I've used a purple and I've got the dots in the centre. And then here, I'm not sure, I think these are like little parasols or something on the outside for the star legs. So I've gone through the 10-inch square and I've chosen my 2 fabrics that I want to use for this. And I think I'm going to do the cake one in the centre and I think I'm going to use the happy balloons for the star legs. So let's start with the star legs first. Now I'm actually going to make this 4 at a time method because I want them to be the same. So I'm going to get my big ruler. I'm just going to move this slightly here. And I'm actually going to cut this into 5-inch strips. So I'm going to cut this 10-inch square right down the middle. So I'm just measuring, just checking. I've definitely got the ruler the right way around. How many times have I done that? And I'm actually going to take a 5-inch square. Now, technically, to get 2.5-inch finished half square triangle units, I only actually need a 4.5-inch square. But because I'm working with a layer cake, I'm just going to do it into 5-inch squares because that's also going to give me more flexibility later when I come to do other star blocks with the same fabric. So all I'm going to do is just sort of trim off 1/2 inch and I'm going to take off the pinked edges. It's going to make it a little bit easier. Now you don't have to do that. You could do it from the 5-inch square. You would just be trimming away more from your half square triangles. Technically, I think you can get about a 3-inch half square triangle out of a 5-inch square, but I only need 2.5 inches. So I've cut a background fabric to match, and we're just going to pair those up. I am going to put a pin in it. People that know me will be a little bit shocked to see that, but just so that as I take it to the machine, it doesn't shift too much. And what we're going to do is sew 1/4 of an inch all the way around the outside. So I'm just going to sew. Now I always start on a little starter scrap. I just find it is a little bit easier on this machine. Now I actually prefer to cut as I go around. I'm actually going to take that pin out. And let's just clip away my little starter piece. It's funny because I don't seem to need it after I get started. It's just starting the block. There we are. So you can see here now I've sewn all the way around the outer edges and now I'm going to trim. I'm actually going to use my slightly smaller ruler. It's a little bit easy. I love this ruler. This is a 2.5 by 12.5 creative grids and I just use it all the time. I have a top 6 rulers and this is one of them. And we're just going corner to corner. And then these are our half square triangles, so I'm going to take these to the iron and give them a press. Okay, so I'm going to set my seam first, and I've got the darker fabric on top, so we're going to press towards the darker fabric. Oh, crumpled that one with the iron. And I just like to finger press these open a little bit first. I just find that seam stays a little bit straighter. And you can see I'm not moving the iron around too much. We don't want to distort the seams or the bias edges. Saying that though, it's not too bad on this one because we are going to trim, but we don't want wonky blocks. So we're just going to give that a press, and then we're going to take that to the cutting mat and give them a trim. Okay, so I'm going to trim these down to 2.5 inches. So I'm using my 6.5 inch square Creative Grids ruler. And I'm just making sure that my 2.5 inch square is well within the area. Let's say if you'd used the 5 inch square, we'd be trimming a lot more away at this point. And I'm just making sure that my diagonal line is just running there across the seam. And we're going to trim. Actually, I'm just going to move that and trim again. Just making sure that I've lined that up. Now, if I had a smaller mat or a rotating cutting mat, this would be perfect for this. And then I'm going to trim the other way, so they're the two sides. Oh, I was getting away from me there a little bit, right, and so now I'm putting the 2.5 inch line along the bottom and up the side and making sure that diagonal line . And there we have our perfectly squared 2.5 inch square. Now I would do that with all of those, just to save a little bit of time. I've got some prepared here, but I will just show you how I'm going to cut my 2.5 inch square for the centre. Now on this there's a direction, and it may be that I want to pick out a particular pattern on this, but I'm not too worried. But I am just going to put my 2.5 inch, and this is why I love this ruler, because you just get 2.5 inches. So I'm just lining it up. I'm going to cut across. That we can save for another project. And here I can just chop all of this. And while I'm cutting, I might as well cut some more 2.5 inch squares, because that's always a really usable size. So we've got our 4. Now I'm actually quite liking that one with the cake on it. So I think I'm going to put that one with there. And when I make that block, that's the piece of fabric I'm going to use. But I'm actually just going to switch to this one, which I've prepared just to save a bit of time with all the trimming. So this, you can see this lovely bright pink. And where's my centre square gone? Oh, hidden under there. So you can see I've got a really nice, and I picked that out because I really like that shocking pink of that to go with this. And then the friendship star gets laid out. Now I always sort of put that one quarter turn, quarter turn, quarter turn, and then I get all my star legs going the same way. Now one thing just to watch with this block is that if you've started with the half square triangle there in that orientation, make sure all your blocks have the colour fabric there. You could make the star block with the legs quarter turn. Sorry, I'm having to do my quarter turn bit again. That was wrong. Quarter turn. Oh no, I think it was right. That's alien. Quarter turn. But you can see the star spinning in the opposite direction. So unless there are some patterns that use those different star directions, but for this one I want my stars all to be going the same way. So do just make yourself a test block and then just make sure you stick to it. So let's just take these to the sewing machine and sew them together. I'm going to do it in rows, and I always start right onto left. So I'm going to take my middle row and flip it down over onto that outside row. And then I can take those 3 blocks to the machine, and then these will follow. Look, I'm being brave and I'm starting without my scrap. I think that should be okay. And then the centre square. Oh, that's not the centre square. Oh, yes, it is. I confused myself there. Now, I'm hoping I've not messed up the order of these when I picked it up, but I think we're okay. We'll soon find out. So I am just going to get up and just check, because I am a little bit worried that I moved the position of some of these. Now for this, press towards the solid squares, and then all your seams will nest. I'm just checking it against my block. This one's wrong. No, I thought it was. Now, have I got that completely wrong? Yes, so we are going to need to do some unpicking on that one. I thought I had. Oh, that way. Let's just do that one again. That is always the benefit of laying it out before you go on to the next step. Otherwise, I would have put the whole star block together and then realised I had a leg facing the wrong way. So it's always better to check. And I'm sure I've got a little unpicker here, so let's just very quickly unpick this seam. And all I do when I'm unpicking is I just sort of go across every 4 or 5. And just putting, now I've actually used, I will just say actually, as I'm unpicking this, the stitch length I use is a 2.0, which is quite small, but I find it sort of holds my blocks together quite nicely. If you find that your seams are sort of coming apart at the edges, shorten your stitch length, and that will stop that from happening. And then I can just sit that over and take that, and then that back thread comes off really quickly. So let's just re-sew that one. Let's just see where it should go, and this is where having this prototype block really helps. It happens, the unpicker is our friend, and my sister calls it reversing when you have to unpick a seam. One of my sisters, I should say. I've got 2. So this was the block we unpicked, but we've saved it, so it's all good. Yes, the disaster is you don't notice until your block is done, or even worse, you don't notice until your quilt is finished. And then you discover you've got a funky star leg, and there's not much you can do about it by that point. So once again here, I'm just going to finger press these. I don't tend to press my blocks until they're fully together, and then I tend to take them to the iron. So I tend to start with the bottom row, going up onto the middle row. And then the final seam, and I'm just going to lift that press foot because I can feel that that seam has just flipped a little bit. And there's our star block. So let's take it over to the iron and just give it one final press. Now I'm just going to press all the seams going one way. Quite often with these blocks I'll press those seams open, but I don't know quite how those seams need to nest for the moment. So And there's our finished 6.5 inch, so that will be a 6-inch finished star block. So let's just go and have a little look at the quilt behind me. So this was a quilt I made for my sister one Christmas about 5 years ago, I think now. It uses the friendship star block. I used a 4-inch cut, so it ended up 3.5 inch finished. I cut it from 8 different fat quarters. His sister really loves bright colours. The background is a navy blue. It looks sort of quite dark, but it's a very dark navy blue. Now with this pattern, you don't actually sort of make the star block a block at a time because they sort of intersect with each other. So if you can have a look here, this block here, which is the bottom right corner of this block, actually forms the top left-hand corner of the next block. And that's how you get sort of this interwoven link with the different stars. I quilted it quite simply. A lot of it was just straight line quilting where I've just done sort of an orange peel effect around. And then for the star points, I literally just did a straight stitch, chose a point just somewhere in the star leg to stop and come back. So it was literally corner, out somewhere into the star block and back again. And you can see here, this one here, it stops slightly shorter. And then I just free motioned all in the navy areas of the quilt. So it came together really quickly. I think the quilt size overall is about 51.5 inches by 65.5 inches. And then I did a scrappy binding with the leftover fabrics from the fat quarters to finish it off. And you can see there I used a really bright pink on the back, and you can see some of the free motion quilting I did on that. So I hope you'll give the friendship star a go and either make a beautiful quilt, or you might want to sew along with a mystery quilt that's still a mystery to me as well. As always, share your pictures on social media. I always love to see what people are making out there, and I hope to see you again here in the sewing studio.